We've talked about the film interviewing. What we haven't talked about is your bookshop and all your fascination with books and collecting them and building a library and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So what started that? And I can see behind you an example of what you've been doing, but I've seen also pictures of your barn or whatever it's called, and it's huge. It's vast.
Yeah. Well, I suppose most academics collect books, although I do know some. There was one, for example, who rather shocked me because he used to have 2 bookshelves or 3 bookshelves. He's a medievalist, and he would write a book and fill the bookshelves up, and then as soon as he'd finished the book, he would sell them or get rid of them and leave them empty for the next lot. And I do know quite a lot of academics who, throw away or sell books. I started, as children do, with a few books, and by the time I got to Oxford, I had some books, but of course you don't have any money. So you're in the position where you have the time and the interest, but you don't have the money. Later in life, you have the money, but you don't have the time to read them. So anyway, at Oxford, I collected books on witchcraft and so on. And I had a sort of model in my supervisor, Keith Thomas, because he was a great bibliophile. And I used to go into his room and marvel at the books he already has as a young man of 28. And this set me an example. And so through the next few years, I would collect some books. But even by the time I got to Cambridge to start at King's College in 1971, I probably had maybe 1,000 books at the most. But I really loved having the book itself. There's a huge advantage. Obviously, libraries are wonderful, but you go and you copy out bits and then you come home and you realize that you've missed the crucial bit, or when you come to check the book at the end, you have to go back to the library and find it again and check it and so on. So there is a great advantage, and there is a sort of feeling. That's why I love this big barn filled with 8,000 books, I suppose, in this part. And then there are other barns with other books, because you just feel in this, I think of this place here with jigsaws on the ceiling and a lot of space above my head. I feel a bit a sort of TARDIS. You come in out of the outer world and you come in here and I can go anywhere I like. I can go to Japan, I can go to shelves on China, I can go to shelves on Nepal, I can go to books on law, I can go to philosophy books, I can go to English history, I can go to political philosophy, different subjects and worlds, and all you need to do is move a few feet and you're in another universe. So having these books around me is very inspiring, and there's something special about just getting up and picking a book off a shelf and looking at it. And obviously there are several added things to say. One is the bookshop idea, which is that Sarah and I, when we first came together, discovered that we both enjoyed going to secondhand bookshops, and Sarah particularly had been to the early days of Hay-on-Wye, the great book town on the Welsh borders. I went a little bit later than her, but after we were together, we used to go there almost every year for some years. And by 6 years or so into the time we were in Cambridge and we had this barn to fill up, we decided that we might as well make a virtue of our necessity. In other words, when we told our children we were going off to look at another bookshop and they groaned and said, "Oh, can we do something else?" We'd say, "Oh no, it's part of our business." So we set up a bookshop, which Sarah managed. It was, at first we collected law books. So it was named after the great English lawyer, Henry de Bracton. So it was Bracton Books. But soon we discovered that law books weren't the best thing, because I was in the social sciences and I met a lot of social scientists, and they said, I've got books to get rid of, or how about this or that. So we Sarah started specializing in the social sciences. And this was wonderful for me because I had my own collection, but she would then suddenly get 2,000 books from some retiring academic in her part of our premises. And I treated this as a second close library. If I particularly wanted a book of hers, I would buy it off her in the usual way. But often I could just, when I was starting a new book, I would go across her shelves and find several dozen books. And what I discovered then, which is something which is not widely appreciated, is I would discover these books. I'd think I'd got a good collection on whatever it was I was starting on, tea or glass or Japan or something. I'd go across her books and I find a new collection. And what I discovered is that there is such a sea of books that any particular collection only represents a very partial. I discovered this particularly when I was working on glass, because I got a collection myself, not very big, and then I went to the Cambridge University Library and looked up all the books on glass there and found, 100 or 200. And I thought, well, that's it. Then I went to King's College Library and I found other books. There was only about a half and half overlap. And then I went to the Department of History and of painting, of art and architecture, and there was almost completely different collection. And I went to the Fitzwilliam and so on. So each library, and the fact that there's only a sort of partial overlap suggests that if I went on going to other collections, I would find many, many more. But in this collection, I have all these books. Now people say, have you read them all? Because between Sarah and I, we have over 20,000 books.
Wow.
And of course I haven't. And I've, even in this library, I've only read perhaps a quarter at the most, or even dipped into a quarter. Because it's really following clues that you need the books. You start on a new subject and you just think, oh yes, I remember there was a book that I got on that, which I didn't read at the time, but then you get it down and you find all sorts of things. And it's that knowing where the books are. All my books are catalogued by Sarah. So I know that I've got the books because it's quite difficult to find them. They're under subject, which means they could be in one or two different places often. And a lot of my friends have a lot of books, but they're more or less worthless because they're either double or triple shelved, so you can't really see them, or they're so badly organized that the chances of them finding anything. And so these books are pretty well arranged and easy of access, so I can actually use them. And they're all, or not all, but many of them are properly indexed. So I can go to my computer, my subject index, my topics index, as I call it on my computer, and I can type in a subject, shall we say glass as ever, or something else, and find references which take me to the page on the books that I have indexed. I haven't indexed more than 1/10 at the most of my collections, but that is also a point worth making, that you've got to have a good arrangement.